Hello all, this is my Star Trek Bestiary where I look at various creatures from the lore and mythos, and this time we're looking into the Vulcan Urso-Feline favourite that has a lot of mentions but only 2 on-screen appearances, the Sehlat. The Sehlat is a giant, cat-like mammal native to Vulcan, also combined with a bear. They exist in both wild and domestic varieties, and apocryphal lore mentions several different subspecies, which helps explain the levels of diversity we see in some of their portrayals. Biologically, they're mammals, covered in fur, and they birth live young. Their fur is coarse and often thicker around the mane. It has a variety of colours, but the most commonly seen types are differing shades of beige and brown, uniform in colour. However, there are several different coat patterns that can occur, from darker tones with paler belly fur to full-on striped patterns. They have yellow cat-like eyes, remarkably good hearing, and most notably, 2 6-inch long saber-tooth that curve down as canines. These grow in during adolescence. In terms of size and scale, it's mentioned that they are of similar weight and measurement to a brown bear of Earth, so that would place females at around 381 to 427 kilograms, and males averaging around 477 to 534 kilograms. Size-wise, they seem to be around 244 centimeters long by 133 centimeters tall. It's mentioned that they are near odourless, which makes sense as the Vulcans have domesticated them for generations and they cannot tolerate many other species' odours. There do exist several varieties of Sehlat, some more closely resembling felines, while others, such as I-chaya, bear a greater ursine resemblance. On top of this, their differing coat patterns may represent the 2 climates in which Sehlat are found, the arid deserts of Vulcan and the tropical rainforests that spot the far southern hemispheres of the planet. Presumably, the tan coat is for natural camouflage in the desert, while the patterns serve to break up the silhouette in a jungle. Jungle Sehlat were called Vi-Sehlat. The presence of these mighty fangs does indicate a carnivorous nature, but they are in fact omnivores. While Sehlat will indeed stalk prey for hours, even days, in an attempt to procure fresh meat, they are also capable of digging with their fangs into the ground to dig up edible roots, burrowing grubs and rodents. Life in the deserts of Vulcan can be harsh, especially in the forge, and the thick coats apparently insulate the creatures from the cold nights and hot days. I mean, fur effectively slows down the alteration of temperature as an insulator, so I guess this is quite feasible. The tough day-to-day survival of the Sehlat drives it to be very possessive of its food sources, hence the reason it will track prey for days if needed. This does bring it into competition with other predatory species of Vulcan, however, such as the I-chaya, another feline-like hunter with lizard-like qualities and venomous claws. These 2 species were notoriously adverse to one another. This drive to survive does render the Sehlat aggressive, territorial and protective of its own, traits that persist even in domestic varieties. It is thought that the Vulcans first domesticated Sehlat back in the pre-awakening times, before Surak, before the sundering of the Romulans and Vulcans, before their nuclear war. It is mentioned that large Sehlats were often ridden by early Vulcan tribes into battles, and judging by the size of some Sehlat, they could indeed serve as mounts for humanoids. However, all Sehlat hate climbing, even so much as the steep incline, making sticking to the high ground the best way to avoid encounters with them in the wild. Unlike the I-chaya, however, which is quite lithe. Over the generations, however, domestic Sehlats have diminished in size comparatively to their wild cousins. They retain many of the wild traits, however, such as the territorial and protective urges, often seeing their owners as their wards, pack, or I guess family, despite being mostly solitary animals in the wild. However, it is a commonly stated fact that a Vulcan is never late with a pet Sehlat's dinner, as they can become aggressive and unpredictable when hungry, as that survival instinct kicks in. So why were they such popular pets for Vulcans, with even Vulcan children taught to care for and raise such a dangerous creature? Well, because of how strict the Vulcan adherence to logic is. In many ways, alongside their teaching of responsibility that owning a pet brings, it created a strong reason to commit to the practice of routine and careful observation. A Vulcan raising a Sehlat was a carefully coordinated action, one that eventually did foster loyalty from the wild nature of the Sehlat, and one marked by patience, understanding and the application of logical methodology from the Vulcan. In many ways it was a teaching method and a tool to exercise logic, but I would also bet that it runs a little deeper too. In many ways, the taming of a Sehlat is like the Vulcan's own history of restraining their savage inherent nature with rigorous training and dedication. A creature with all the potential to become naturally aggressive, feral and a dangerous hunter being brought to heel with respect. The similarities are hard to ignore, although most Vulcans do still seem rather confused by the human notion of pets, so the relation between a Sehlat and a Vulcan must be viewed as culturally different. The popularity with Sehlat among the Vulcan people as pets has led them to becoming pets of species outside of Vulcan, and present on Vulcan colonies but only as pets. Wild Sehlat, as far as we are aware, exist solely on Vulcan. Either way, Sehlats still remain challenging creatures to oversee, but loyal beasts when they achieve a deep connection to their owners. There are apparently some old mentions of Sehlat that could mimic human speech, which seems a little far-fetched. They are rather intelligent and can recognise certain commands, but it's not clear to what extent this understanding goes. I doubt they are truly fully sapient, but it really is unclear. We don't get to see many Vulcans interact with their pet Sehlat often, despite the fact that they are among the most commonly mentioned of Star Trek animals, as common a pet to the Vulcans as a dog is to humans. There are also mentions that they are resistant to disruptor fire, but I wouldn't want to test that out on a domesticated one because no, and I really would not want to be in a situation where I had to test it on a wild one because Thanks for watching this video on one of the most commonly mentioned but far too infrequently seen creatures of the Star Trek mythos. This one was requested a while ago, so sorry it took so long, but here you are. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you again next time. Goodbye.